Welcome, welcome, welcome. I am live. I am live for everyone to watch. So you are not seeing things. Normally, this is a private stream. I just send it to those that get the DIY ornament of the month, and then they get a little workshop with it for my critterosity.subly.me DIY ornament workshop reward. That's a lot to say. Also, I'm on Shopify, so you can also get these rewards as you want, but you're not getting the major hookup like when you just do it monthly. So every month I come out with a new workshop piece. These are laser cut, and it comes with a little tab where you can hang it, or you could stand it up on your table, whatever it is you want to do with your little ornament. I have been apologizing for my hands all week. I did a big convention. I've been doing catching up all weekend or all week long, so my nails are a little yuck, but hey, I mean, we are sitting here working on art, so your hands are going to probably get painted anyways. So what this normally is a private stream where those who purchase this get to learn how I would paint this if it was me, and then I move this over to a auction on Pop Shop, which is a free app for anybody to enjoy. And then if you choose to purchase, you can always purchase the Pop Shop Live items that come up. But otherwise, this is an auction. I usually do a one-off, and that's it. So whatever happens in this video, that's the only one that I plan on making. That's usually the case. Sometimes I might make two of something, but it is really rare. So I always run through my materials, what I hope that people are using. If they don't have it, they can use a Posca marker, they can use regular markers, but I never vouch for any of that stuff. I vouch for acrylic wash or acrylic paints. So I do have my white acrylic. That's just a generic acrylic. I have a lot of blues, reds, orange, yellow in all different color schemes. So if you are trying to write in the chat today, just letting you guys know, I have some obligations today that I have to be at a certain time, so I'm just going to run through this. Also, a reminder, I go quickly, and the reason why is because you can pause, rewind. I always say to kind of watch me make it first and then go back and do it if you want to make it look like this, or you can just start painting it any way you like. You never have to wait for my workshop to come out. We are always a month behind. So this is the May reward, and even though that seems like we're 2 months behind, normally it would have come out the first week of July, but again, I did leave town for a comic convention out of state, so I was busy. But here we are. Here are some options. This is acrylic wash, which is made by Holben. I always support and promote Art Supply Warehouse. You can also shop them online. And again, anyone that's seeing this workshop, if you don't have the ornament, it's gone. So just a reminder, if anyone's like, oh no, it's live to everybody, nobody can paint this. So you needed the ornament to paint along with it. So I've got my little teaser right here for me to kind of reference, because I try to stay on the way that I design the character first. I am using mostly, actually, if not all, Princeton brushes. Princeton is the most affordable brush that I absolutely love. I don't feel bad when I have to throw one away. Most of the time I don't throw them away. I keep them until the very bitter end, like it literally falling apart bitter end. And I know one of them in here has like a loose little base here holding it on. So it will happen. You'll see them fall apart while I'm live, and that's okay. So if you don't have these kind of materials that I'm using and you want to join the DIY ornament, like I said, Posca markers are fantastic. I just invested in my first round of them because I mean, I'm doing more laser cutting now that we have a laser printer, and you can use any products you want. This is just a suggestion when you do this. Okay, so usually I'll leave some things off for you guys to draw, especially like eyes and stuff. I don't want you to have to worry about it having all these different levels and then you're trying to get the paint in there and you can't. So what I usually do is I start drawing them in. I also tell people to take their phones, take photos of your process all the way through, because once you start painting, you're going to cover the lines we make. But it's all about repetition. So if you've already drawn it and you already know about where things are going, then you probably are going to remember exactly where to add the paint to it. I've already drawn this in pencil. Again, this little character is a design on my shop. If you don't own it as a trading card or the postcard, you can always refer to my online store and check it out. but I do have him listed. So I did one pupil is just a circle. I do not color it in because I'm going to end up coloring it in basically with the paint. So don't sit there for a long time and color. I'm using a Sharpie marker so that way it is no water or any kind of damp paint or anything like that can like smudge it. So just the quicker you draw, the better. I'm not saying go so fast that you mess up. And it's not going to be identical to what I drew on the computer. When I draw on the computer, you can get it pretty darn close. I'm probably going to change this up as I go, but at least I have an idea of where it is. I'm going to add some eyebrows. And then I'm going to add the loop to the hair. So again, I move fast. You can rewind, rewatch as much as you like. It's also not going to be exact with our laser printer. We have to do a couple adjustments because I work with PNG files and you're supposed to use SVG files, which is a vector file. That means it's mathematically equal no matter how much you stretch the image. It holds up perfectly. The line work is like exact. I just don't know how to do that, and that's okay. I'm not going to learn. It's just not my thing. So I use a PNG file, and so it kind of loses a few little things here on the side. You can see when I'm drawing, it's very whimsical and much thicker, and then over here, it's not as much. See how I put the eye too far left? I can always move it over right, and I remind people that paint is very forgiving. So the first thing I'm going to do is start with my darks and work my way to my lighter tones. So the first thing I'm going to use is minty green. Another reason why I love acrylic wash is because you get colors that are so ready to go. You don't have to mix as much. When you get acrylic paint, sometimes you have to mix things, but there is a lot of acrylic paint colors. I am using my Deerfoot brush, and with the Deerfoot brush, it's more like a pouncer. I want to make sure I do not have a lot of water because this is a kind of a paper wood as opposed to a wood piece. So it's particle board is the best way to put it. And with particle board, it's going to absorb the drier ink first before it absorbs like a really damp ink. And otherwise, it's just going to stay like that. So I'm going under the shirt onto the body because I'll use white when I'm done with this and highlight. So this is just kind of like an off-white gray tone. Now, if you don't want to get it in the little grooves and see how it kind of colored in my lines, and if you're on an iPad or the phone, you can always expand the picture. You can't really do that when you're watching like on the TV, I don't think. Maybe you can. Maybe you're going to teach me something. I don't know. But see how if I avoid the lines and kind of pull at an angle, it's going to softly go over it, and it's not going to go into this line work. But I'm kind of okay whether it stays or it doesn't. So that doesn't really bother me. I just kind of paint. And then when I go back with my lighter tone, that's when I'm going to kind of drag it with barely any paint on my brush. What's happening is all that paint was in my brush. It kind of gooped up and it went into those lines. So it all depends on what your final look is going to be and your patience. I usually paint fairly quick just because it's my character. I kind of know, well, Donald Duck is not my character, but I drew this design, so I kind of know where everything's going. And I have it pre-planned out in my head as I start to paint it. I kind of know where I want to put things and how I want it to look. So we're starting first with like a grayish green tone. This one again is called Misty Green, Art Supply Warehouse. You might have to type in Misty Green just to find the product. I don't know why acrylic wash does not show up easily on the Art Supply Warehouse page. Not sure why that is, but it is the case. Okay, we're going to go next with talking about, while that dries, next talking about the little flag. So as you can see, he has a little flag here, which I thought, okay, I'll make a little laser cutout. But then I love mixed media. So I thought it'd be cute if you either bought felt, or if you like the wooden look, they do make a lot of triangle shapes and things like that that you can purchase. Felt and, I'm sorry, this is foam. I love using foam. And then I was going to tell you guys felt, they actually have a thicker felt. So it can look like a real pennant, basically. And I find that foam is easier to write or paint on. Felt tends to get, you know, kind of pilly. And then as you're going, almost like a Q-tip, little hairs are just going to be drugs. So it's whatever you want. I wanted you guys to think outside the box if you did this ornament with me, and you can cut it out, and then I'm just putting these little pieces here. The ornaments are fragile to begin with, even though they're good, they hold up, they're nice and sturdy. You can see that this piece hopefully stayed intact for everyone. You You can also make him a wizard if you want, and or maybe a maestro, right? A conductor. So just saying, there's some options there, and that's why I like to kind of see where you guys take things. And then when you're done with it, you can always tag me and say, hey, this is what I made with mine. There's also Misty Blue, and Misty Blue is like that, but more in the blue tones. I thought I had it down here. I don't. I probably would have rather gone with Misty Blue, but it doesn't matter to me. It's just kind of an undertone. So you can see as it's darkening, as it's drying. So some colors will lighten and some colors will darken as you work with them. Next, I'm going to move to my oranges. So I'm going to go with my darkest color I want first. I think I'm going to go with just a straight up orange tone. This one is orange yellow is the color. I've had orange before and I didn't really care for the color it was. I liked more of this bright orange. So I'm going to start first with that, and I'm just tapping, tapping, tapping. And again, less water is better. That's why acrylic wash is great. It's kind of like a creamy consistency. So it's really, really nice when it goes down. And you can always go back and touch up with smaller brushes. I just want to get the majority of it covered and done so it can start drying. This is where I was telling you guys, if you want, you can always go very softly and pull. You can see that some of it already went into that little crevice right there, which is okay with me. If it's not with you, you'll get very frustrated. These lines are very thin, and I'm trying to make my laser cuts a little thinner so that it doesn't always just drop right in there. But I find that when I'm all done with shading and highlights, those lines don't matter as much. They're more of a guide to follow. So there we go. Now my oranges are down. I don't have any more oranges on this paper, or on this ornament. I'm going to move on. And remind yourself, as you're going, I have to wait till the very end to really decide if I like it or I don't. Because if you're judging it right from the get-go, it's no way to work. You've got to complete a project first to make those kind of judgments on it. And so I never judge my work until I think it's done. And then if I still don't like it, I'm like, okay, now I really don't like it. And reminder, this is like a sip and paint. So get yourself a drink, turn on some music, light some candles. I do this quietly so that you guys can enjoy whatever ambiance you have in your background. Next is a turquoise blue. There's turquoise blue and peacock blue with this brand. I have both of them. Peacock blue is going to be more of a green, and this one's going to be more of a blue. So I went more with the blue, and I'm just going to tap that onto the top. I do have one little bug that just has decided to float right around where I'm working, just like a little fruit fly kind of thing. So I'm going to do blue. I don't care about this because we're going to need black for that after. All right, now here on the shirt is something that I left so that we could talk about it. There's going to be 2 stripes. There's one stripe here, so you can draw a little stripe. And then right above, there's another stripe, a band around his shirt. And then there is one more right here. Now, on my postcards, I didn't catch it. But it's supposed to be like a yellow right there. That's supposed to be his little flap, his little like sailor flap on his shirt. So that's okay. We'll just move on and draw it in and kind of let it be, let it be, let it be. If you find a brush is just too big for the part that you're working on, go ahead and change up your brush. I use my brushes so often, it feels like an extension of me. I feel like I am the brush. Be the brush. So profound. I know. I'm going to actually cover the bands because I can always add those when it's dry. So I'm just going to cover up the buttons. Try to avoid my my bow. And there is a little under part of his shirt. I'm going to hold this up and show you guys exactly where it is on the picture and this. Okay, and if you guys have any questions during this, you can always write in the description, in the comment section below under my description, because a lot of you are going to ask questions about like, where do I buy this stuff? Where do I get it? And maybe missed where I said it. So you can always use the comment section to ask. I decided to make this month kind of what is Critterosity doing with all these private subscriptions and how do I become a part of it? And again, it's all these links above, but critterosity.subly, subly.com is my subscription. website, and that is how people get a hold of exclusive items and moments like this. And I'm also hosting my last Critterosity ink and paint next month, so this is the last month to purchase it. It will not be it will not be available in August to make purchases anymore. And those workshops are going to be up for sale. If you guys have any interest down the road and you're like, hey, I missed out on all the drawing workshops, what do you have? But they will be more expensive than those that were supporting the reward this last like year or so. Okay, so I'm just kind of killing some time because it is a smaller area and we have to keep moving with it. We have to keep it going. I'm not going to do any black just yet. I would rather touch up the fur right now, or the feathers. So I'm opening up my acrylic white. I go with acrylic white because as awesome as acrylic washes and some of the white is really opaque, I find that acrylic white is the best, and I love matte acrylic because the other one is going to be really shiny, and if you want it to kind of add a glossy look to it, by all means, but when most of it's matte and then you add a white gloss, it really throws things off. I don't want it to be shiny when it's over, so the matte is my favorite. And now you're going to see I'm covering up some of those tones that we did earlier, but that's okay. I can always add those shadows back. Right now I want to dry brush. Now a dry brush is literally what you think. It is less on the brush, no water, literally no water. Tap off as much as you can until it feels like it's kind of wearing out, and then you just dry brush it. This is going to create a really nice texture, and it's not going to be super vibrant. It's going to kind of keep that shadow in there. I'm going to avoid where I think shadows go. Oh, and I forgot to show you guys. This is that undershirt lip right here. So it kind of goes over. I think I didn't close up the belly area right there, so we'll make sure we do that with white. But do you see how I left that shadow right there? So the higher it is up here, you can go really white. And then as it gets lower towards the edge of something, I then lighten it up. I try not to go as much. And down here, there's going to be a lot of shadow because it's curving under the face. So up top, more of the highlight. And we can add more white. And then as it comes down towards the chin, we start to let that color get a little bit darker. So I'm going to hold it up again. Okay. And you can kind of see where that shadow is remaining. And then when that dries, I'll go back over it. I have a little bit more white on my brush, so I keep moving around to anywhere white. This is where I was saying you can add shadows back if you'd like, or you can just add the little highlight. And what it'll do is kind of just sit in those areas. I'm not too worried if I tap the blue, unless you added too much water, then your blue is gonna show up kind of murky in the white. So just be really careful where you're adding things. Now where his shirt is gonna add a shadow. Over here will be a bit more shadow on his arm. And I'm just kind of avoiding right under his shirt. I want that to have a bit of a shadow to it as I get a big clump of paint. This is why I auction them off, because you can see that I actually painted it. All right, it's a real painting. All right, now we're gonna move to blues again. I'm gonna work on those blues, and instead of going straight to a light blue, I'm trying to find a color to kind of marry the dark blue and the really light blue. So I'm gonna go next to my aqua blue. I brought out some other blues just in case, but the more I'm seeing it, the less I like that color. So now I'm gonna kind of blend it in. When I say marry, it just means finding a color between the two colors. So kind of a nice transition color. Okay, again, I love the dark tones peeking through the edges. If you just color it all matte, it starts to lose that nice color it has, the nice pop of color. And look at that. You see that? That's what we want. I have a little bit of white still on my brush, and I'm okay with that. And we're just gonna make this one a little bit brighter on this side. And as it goes around the back, we're gonna let it get a little darker. As it goes lower, can be darker. Up on this edge can be a little brighter. Okay, the part right near the sun is gonna be a little bright. And then as it starts to go away, we're gonna let it fade out. So let me lift this up. Sometimes it's hard to see. All right, remember that little lip around the shirt right here around the belly as it curves around? It's gonna be the darkest place because that's kind of wrapping around, and we can't really see that side as well. This back arm can be kind of in the light. And then as it goes towards the inside of the shirt, we want to leave a little bit of a shadow there. And this is our most viewed part of the arm, or part of the body, I should say, the shirt. So we're going to see this much brighter on this side. Okay, so I mixed the two colors together. I'm kind of getting this bright color. If you like where it is, keep it. If you don't, you can always go back. But the more you mess with it from the get-go, it's going to get really blurry. Colors aren't going to look like they're standing out nicely. So you want to just take your time. Okay, I will be adding a highlight to this orange. I've got Jaune Brilliant, and it's gonna go on the legs. I'm not worried about any mistakes because I'm gonna be adding a shadow back. You can always go back and do shadows. I don't want you guys to feel like, oh, we did it all at the beginning, so I'm not allowed to do it. You can do whatever you want to fix your piece, but the quickest way to do it, and this was taught to me, and I will always say it by a friend of mine, he said dark to light, always work dark to light, because that way your shadow's already down, you don't have to work as hard. If you're trying to reverse that and get your shadow in there, that's when it's going to get a little more difficult. So this Jaune Brilliant's adding a really nice highlight to this orange. Okay, we're not done yet. I'm not worried about it. I haven't made my mouth yet, so that stuff will start to pop later. All right, so a little highlight, and then because I want to bring it even brighter, I'm going to use cream yellow, just a little bit of cream yellow before the Jaune Brilliant ends. Hold on one second, just have to open it up. You can use an edge of the scissors. Hold on, I didn't go down far enough. Okay, and I just scrape around the edges until I get that paint booger out. Okay, and then give it a little squeeze, and it's starting to come up, so that works enough for me. I'm going to get a new brush. This is why I keep all my brushes, because to just go back and grab another brush and another brush and another brush. And reminder to always take photos of your work as you go along, because once you cover it up, you're probably going to be like, where were the eyes? What was I supposed to do? And this paint is just really gummy. I might have to let this one go. Hold on one second. I'm going to add a little bit of water, try to revive it. Try to keep my tubes of paint until they're pretty much gone, or they're not easily workable, because you're going to go slower if your paint isn't ready to be, used. So I'm just mixing it in. See how I'm kind of merging that? Sorry if I'm shaking the table here. Okay, and I'm just going to barely touch the end of the beak. Just barely touch the top right here that touches that piece. And this is just adding a little highlight, a little touch right here. Okay, a little too much. And a little bit on the foot. And a little bit on the foot. And that's not necessarily in the original piece, but I just feel like since I'm painting, I kind of want to make it look vintage and have a little bit of color to it. And what does she have? Another Deerfoot brush that's dry. I'm going to do some blending. So while it's still a little damp, I'm just blending it out just a little bit as it dries. Okay, up next, we're going to go with, I like the blue that I have. I'm really happy with it. So now I'm gonna start to add a little shading, and I'm gonna go back to my darkest blue. And with shading, I tell people, think of watercolor. You can add a bit of water, it doesn't take much. Paint goes a long way. Gonna mix a little bit of that. And now what I'm gonna do is go under my buttons, because remember, I'm gonna make those pop with a different color. I'm gonna go under and around my bow tie. Remember, we still have that little yellow piece there. I'm gonna go under this arm. It's just adding a really soft little shadow. I'm gonna go kind of make a curve there on that arm. So just a little round brush did the job here. And then a little bit where that little curve is. I'll probably have to touch up my white, but just think of a little curve for his shirt coming around. And a little bit there, and a little under the elbow. I still have those little lines I have to make in it too, okay? I'm gonna add a little shadow down at the bottom where the sun isn't hitting. So right here under the hat. And if you want to make a fun little like crease in the hat at the top, you can do that too. You can even drag a little bit of color just a little farther. Give it a little crease at the top of the hat. And water will just smooth things out. And that way all the little stippling pieces that I was very conscious about doing, those are there. And the great part about acrylic wash is it is like watercolor. You can add a little bit of water and no paint and kind of blend it out just slowly. And it'll start to naturally kind of soften that darker tone you did. If you want it really harsh, that's fine. But if you want to soften it out, you can add a little bit of water. And this is the darkest point right there. Okay, with that same brush, I'm going to take my light blue. This is the lightest blue I've got. This is pale aqua. And again, it's gummy, but sometimes I just squeeze that top part out, wipe it off. And then the next part is a little bit more, you know, creamy, a little more watery. So I just add a little bit of water to it. And now I'm going to add a little brush of highlights. Okay, a little highlight to his arm, a little highlight here. Just making it fun. I don't even know why I'm doing it. I just feel like it needs a little highlight there. Okay, I could even add some of this light blue for his shadow. Remember when I said I kind of wished I went with like a misty blue color more than green? Now I can take a little bit of that and add a little shadow around. Not too much, just enough. We have the little loops that we made that kind of got hidden when I painted it white. So we can bring the loops back. So you're almost drawing with your brush. And then I can take white and kind of soften that too. Now I can come down here with a little bit of that light blue and add a little more shadow to it. And now with that brush, if I clean it off well, these round brushes are fantastic for little detail spots. I can go to little areas and kind of add a bit more white just to highlight. So now I can be very, very, very focused on where that is. See, watch when I add it over the loop color. If it's still damp, it'll just blend. So you can always let that blend. And if you want to do black outlines, you can certainly do that as well. I just always like it to look less like a very obvious line. I like it to look more like as if he was really in my hand. All right, now you know your flag is coming down here, the flagpole. So you can always draw or paint the line when you're doing it. I want to keep a little bit of shadow at the bottom where it's about to touch his outfit. I'm going to paint his elbow just a little bit lower and then his fingers. If you lose both fingers, that sounds like not fun. Okay, but if you lose both of Donald's fingers in there, you can always go back with your darker tone and add a little shadow to it in that little line. For me, he's a bird, so it kind of looks like feathers instead of a hand. And so I'm actually going to leave it like that. If it really bothers me, I'll go back to it later. All right, so next I'm going to start to sketch out where the eyes are. And I'm going to use that misty green again because I can cover it up. So I'm going to take my little brush and I'm going to start to find out where the eyes go. I'm going to move them in just a little bit from where I was. Put it more like right here and just fill that in for a minute. I'm going to end up changing the colors of the eyes, but at least I have an idea of where they go. This goes for my little eyebrows too. I'm just kind of marking where I want them. Maybe I go under the hairline as well, add a little shadow while I've got this. Kind of bring a shadow back. Okay, we're almost to the bow. All right, we're gonna paint the inside of the mouth. I'm going with a crimson red to start. This is like a burgundy. All right, and I'm just loading up that same brush. I'm gonna go very slow here and make sure I go right within the lines. His little tongue is there, but that's okay. I can paint over the tongue because I can put it right back after when I'm ready. So I'm gonna go ahead and color all of that in. And it's a little hard to see my lines, but I'm starting to see them a little better. You guys will be right over your project. I'm like sitting back. And you know what? Let's go ahead and start that bow. while I have this nice little detail brush, it's already loaded with the paint. Why waste paint, right? We got to find where everything goes. So I'm just going to fill that in. And a reminder, this is just a free watch today for anyone that wants to watch it. Anyone with the ornament will be painting it. And so if you guys are like, man, I feel like I'm really missing out, like I would love to do this, you can always sign up. This one will remain a reward. My Critterosity ink and paint is slowly closing up because, you know, so many lessons. I could teach lessons forever and ever, but it is tough with a wide range crowd of, I'm a digital artist, I'm a painter. Are you going to be teaching more painting tutorials? Are you going to be teaching more digital tutorials? And so I feel like we have a perfect range of projects that they can keep going back to. So today's lesson and the next one will be kind of wrapping up and helping some people that do this for a living, and we're looking for some extra help. We've had people ask about contracts and how do you do those kind of things. And since that is how I make some extra money, I want to make sure I cover that information as well for people. Okay, I'm going to go back to my dark orange. And again, with this nice line brush, I'm just going right in with my darkest orange, and I'm going to start that bottom little line for the beak. I'm going to add a little bit darker orange at the bottom because the sun isn't getting to that. It's getting more to the top of the nose, so I'm going to add a little shadow where the beak starts to transition right there, and a little bit around the smile line. If you hid your smile line, you can't see it, you can always add it back. I'll show you guys kind of what I plan on doing. I'm going to use a dark orange to add a little shadow where the legs come out from the body, and then a little bit at the bottom of the foot. Just try to think, if the sun's hitting, where can it not see? Well, his little round cute body is hiding some of that, so there's that. Okay, next I'm going to be doing my kind of my goldish yellow colors for the little piece that goes over his shoulder, for this little band here and here, and the little buttons. I also have actual gold, so what I do is I try to at least prep underneath the gold I'm going to use, but the bands and this are actually going to be yellow, and then the buttons are going to have a gold paint on it. So I'm going to again use my orange. Even though it's going to be yellow, we still want to go with a dark tone underneath. Do you guys see that bluish coming through, the blue? That is why we want to start like covering things up, because if you were just to go on this with yellow, it's not gonna look very good. That's my own opinion. And then the other thing I was going to tell you was, you kind of have to build up your layers to be the final color you want. That's the best thing to do. If you go over it too much with water, it will start to reactivate the paint underneath. So you only want to go over it a couple times. I've got this Jaune Brilliant, which is almost like an apricot color. I know, apricot, theater. I had to think about it because we say theater, and where I'm from, I don't know if my other friends did that in our hometown, but my mom says theater. And when I moved to LA, everybody said it's theater. And I was like, oh, I'm sorry. I didn't realize I was saying it in a weird way. So now again, with my nice detail brush, I can go back and add a little line of Naples yellow. This is just going to add a little highlight. And you see how I'm showing where the smile is by creating its own shadow? It's following it along. So watch this. If I just drag this here and highlight up top and let it fade out, and I add a little bit down here, it creates that smile for you. You're starting to see it without having to go over it a bunch of times. Yes, that is going to be white at the end, those two little bits of fur. Actually, now that I look at it, part of this should be white, but I made it all his face. So let me show you what I'm talking about. See where his cheek is on the right-hand side? I think I missed this line when I was creating it. And if we look here, this should close up there. So I think I'm going to take white and fix all that when it's dry. Things that you don't know when you're doing line work and you miss a couple little lines. Same with this line right here. I just missed it just by a smidge. So now I'm taking my misty green and I'm closing up where that part of his clothing comes around the corner. I usually go back and fix this up more. I just want to get the main details out for everyone to see, and then I come back and, you know, fine tune everything. I made his eyes a light blue in this. So I'm going to do my cheek first, which I really should have done my cheek before I did. I don't know why I did that before I did my beak. I don't know why I didn't do the cheek before the beak, but I'm going to take my coral red. I think I have too much water on my brush, so I'm going to use my towel and just kind of wipe it down and then get it to a really, really, really soft tone. And I'm just gonna lightly add this like blush. And it's okay, wherever you decide to put the cheek, if it goes over that, it's fine, just touch it up. It's only one cheek because the other one is being hidden. So we've got that. If you wanna add coral red anywhere else to add a warmth, I'm putting a little at the bottom of his feet. It's gonna be on his tongue, so I don't wanna do too much, otherwise it'll start to get confusing. And I wanted to do some on his bow tie. So his little tongue and his bow tie. And we are slowly wrapping up, guys. This is coming to an end. If you ever see this video and you're like, man, she moves way too fast for me, a reminder, you have pause, rewind, and you can rewatch it anytime you like. All right, so I'm gonna use coral red and make a cute little tongue. If I go outside the lines, I can tell because it kind of shows where it changes to that coral red color with the line work. So I'm gonna start there. And I'm just going to take coral red and go backwards now and just kind of touch it up. Like, whoops, that one went too far. And I'm going to take, another Deerfoot brush. I love Deerfoot brush for like these projects. They're so much fun to have that. And I'm going to just lightly brush this on each side. I'm not trying to go to the edges. I just want a light brush on it. I really wanted a vintage tone for this one, less like, you know, really vibrant and bold. I wanted it to be a little washed down look, right? Because he's vintage. He's a vintage man. All right, so now he has a little bit of like a coral red washed onto his crimson red. How much you guys want to add to stuff like that, you certainly can. I totally forgot to do the buttons. Let me go back to my pointy brush. I'm going to do it just like I did before. I'm going to use orange first. Even though I want gold or yellow, I still want like a dark orange down. And you just got to keep moving around the ornament. This is the same when I teach how to paint and stuff, is you got to move around your canvas. You cannot sit in one spot for too long. If you do, it just starts to really mess with it. All right, so remember, I said I'm going to end up closing that up and try to find the cheek and the little flared piece right there. Now that I've done my cheek, I'm going to do my eye blue, and I'm going to use Horizon Blue for this. It's kind of stepping out of my element, making his eyes blue, but I did, you know, obviously use reference and looked at a photo of Donald. The drawing is 100% made up by me, but I looked at reference on his beak and things like that because that is the part I struggle with more than anything when I'm making Donald. And why I tell all of my amazing supporters who go, can you make more Donald stuff? And I'm like, I just don't like beaks. They make it so difficult. It's the little flip in the bill, and I just have a really tough time with it. So I have to approach it a completely different way. All right, now I would really like some more texture, to be quite honest. So I'm gonna add with this big brush, a big Deerfoot brush, I am going to add a little bit of this bright, bright, bright blue. And I'm just gonna stipple like that to create kind of a new little spot for it here. And that's kind of looking like what I did with my Procreate brush. I used a brush that kind of stipples naturally as you're drawing with it. So it kind of just gives it a little something. It just changes it up so it doesn't look so flat, I guess. Sometimes a little bit of excitement in your piece is best. I have ice green. Anyone that knows me knows is like one of my all-time favorite paint colors I have. So just at the bottom of these eyes, I'm going to leave the top color the same. I'm just adding a little bit of ice green to the bottom. I'm going to add a little bit of this to the clothing. Just a little. I'm just guessing. There's no particular way I'm doing this. I'm just kind of throwing it down, almost like a little highlight of color. So the more textures for me, the better. More colors, warms it up, makes it so much fun. Okay, and now, ladies and gents, it's time for some yellows. And I want more of an orangey gold yellow, so that's why I kind of grabbed, this one's just regular yellow, but I have a little bit of this orange left, so I'm going to kind of blend them so I can get kind of a yellow gold first. So I'm blending. It's going to be more of a bright orange first, like a yellow orange, and then I just am touching the yellow and just barely putting that back on. I'm doing a little yellow highlight before I add my golds in there. Where else can I add this bright yellow? On the beak. Okay, we lightened it in some areas so it pops. And then we've got this little collar, right? His little collar, and I think it has a black line through it, if I remember correctly. But I'm just kind of guessing where the rest of that collar goes, and I'm going to guess right here where this goes based on this. So if you guys want to screenshot this, you can kind of see where the cheek on the right hand side is going to be in white. And you can kind of see where the mouth is. And also my coral red is not popping over that shadow, so we have to make sure we touch that up. Everyone's pieces are going to look slightly different. So if mine isn't looking good, but yours is, keep it up. You keep going. All right, I'm going to take some white, and I'm going to start to add a little bit more here, a little bit more white, so it's not super, super, super shadowy there, shadowy. I'm just kind of going over the eyes, adding a little bit more on the hair here. This is where I'm going to go on this cheek. Okay, so I'm shaping it based on what I'm seeing over there. I can see a little bit of the beak there, but it follows the line and then it kind of tips up at the top there. Tippy, tippy top. Kind of a weird one. Weird shape, but it follows that curve, and then the beak kind of takes over right there. It kind of pops. I might have to alter it a little bit, but first we just kind of guess and do our best. When you're using a lot of white on the ornament, it does tend to pull a little bit of other colors into it, so just be really mindful of where it's doing that. Anywhere I want to kind of cover something up, I'm going to use acrylic white. Acrylic, it adds like a really nice barrier between the paints. So I'm just adding a little bit more, and then I'll go back over with the cheek. But if I blend too much, it's going to reactivate that cheek color, and it's going to make everything pink. So I want to keep moving on and just let it kind of do its thing and dry, and then we'll touch that one back up. Making sure your water is clean and your brush is clean when you're using white is going to be very helpful. Once we add all the black, it's really going to make it start to pop, because we're going to have a nice contrast. Okay, I feel like the misty green is really starting to dry dark, so now I don't feel as scared to add a bit more white to it. Not too much. I still want the shadow, but I can add a bit more just to the fingers, the knuckles. Okay, almost ready for black. I'm going to go back with more of my coral red. I want to clean off one of my deerfoot brushes. I'm going to go with the smallest deerfoot brush I have, this one, to do the bow, because the bow is a little bit smaller. You also want to make sure not a ton of water is running down the handle, otherwise it will just go right down into the painting, so we want to be mindful of that. So I'm just going to tap, and the cheek is going to be softer, so it's not going to blend in with this bow. And I feel like the feet need to be a little more orange. They're starting to turn more of that coral red color, so I'm going to take some more orange, and I'm going to add a bit of a shadow and a little bit to the bottom of the feet. If you feel you need some yellow, you can always add more. And my little beak here. There we go. Now I feel like I found how it kind of cuts off there. So you got a little bit of the beak right there. Sometimes you have to pick it up too because it'll blend in when it's down. So you kind of have to hold them up and take a look. All right, I'm gonna move to black now. I'm feeling like I'm in that stage where I can move to the next one. So I'm gonna open this up. I'm gonna take my line brush, see if I can find it. There it is. Okay, I'm gonna get a little bit of water, not too crazy, just enough. I'm gonna kind of tap some onto my palette and some onto my napkin. And now if I work this black into that water, it'll make a nice, smooth, easy to work with kind of paint here, consistency. If it's too runny, it's gonna come out see-through, which is fine. You can always go back and touch up over the black. If you go too opaque, then it's just a little bit hard to work with. So I'm trying to get my lashes. So my lash line is a little rainbow. Always move your canvas to where your hand is comfortable. If you feel like the water's starting to run down, don't even risk it. Just wipe off your brush, let it go, load up again. Make sure all the paint is staying up. Now I shake all the time. It's just been the way I am my whole life, no matter what I do. And sometimes I have to go back and use another color to fix something up. So don't ever feel like that's a fail. That's the great part about paint is you can go back and fix things up. Now I'm going to take directly from my my little paint bottle here. I'm just going to dip the end of my brush in. I'm going to tap down a couple times, and this is going to be the pupil. So I'm picking where the pupil gets to go. And the smaller you start, the better, because you can always go bigger, but you can't really go back. You're going to have to use that blue and do it again. So just try to make them as even as you can. That's really hard to do. It's like perfection there. All right, I'm making 2 pupils a little more to the left than center. So I want him looking just a little bit left. So I'm going to go a little bigger. I know I still have to work on the cheek, but I'm working more on the left side than I am by the eye. If it's touching the eyelid, that's fine. It's whatever you guys prefer. So if I touch it to one, I need to do that to the other one. I feel like I have something on my canvas that is creating a block there. So I'm going to tilt it. It might be my brush only going a certain direction. Let me see. Boop. And pulling for me is better than going outward. If I pull the brush towards me, it tends to glide the correct way for me. I have more control over it, basically. So this area right here, I'm gonna need some blue. Over here, I'm gonna thin this out with some white. And then I'm gonna paint my little stick that's gonna hold my pennant. And for today's tutorial, I'm just gonna show you guys a real quick way to make a pennant. You can take as long as you want. You can use perfect penmanship. I don't have that skill. So I'm just gonna do the best I can do. His eyes almost look like they're going different ways. So I wanna keep working on that for a minute. There we go. Really though, I do think there is something here blocking my paint because I can't seem to get it. I need my glasses though. I don't think I have them down here. My reading glasses help tremendously for little things like this. Part of the problem is this black right here. I can even take some water on the brush and kind of try to clean it. Oh, there we go. Thinned it out a little bit. But leave it alone. Don't try to make it all messy because you can't stand looking at it. You can fix it over time. So get it as close as you can and then leave it alone. You can always come back the next day, take a look, and it might like look even, you know, like you need to fix it more tomorrow. I'm going to use a little bit of misty green just for a little bit more of a shadow right now. So I'm using some misty green on this cheek, at the bottom of this hand, on the palm, and the pinky. I added some misty green there. I know I used that blue, which I really did like, but I feel like it needs a little bit of that misty green. Okay, my final things, my final thoughts here. I'm going to do that bright yellow as a highlight on the bands. So just a quick highlight on the band for the arms. Not too much though, because I can tell that it's still a little damp. I'm going to add a little highlight there. A little highlight here. If you guys have an iPad or a phone, you can always zoom in with your hands to see it closer. So feel free to do that just to see where I'm adding things that are a little bit smaller details. If I zoom in, I tend to forget I zoomed in and I keep moving on. Then people are like, we couldn't see half the painting. So sorry, my memory is no good. All right, I'm gonna take some blue now. I'm gonna go back to my turquoise blue I first worked with, and I'm gonna add a little highlight, just a little one, and a little highlight here on the little tassel. So let me bring that up so you guys can see. Just a little highlight of blue and a little highlight of blue. I'm gonna fix my left eye. I'm gonna come back. And I'm using more paint. I'd rather use a lot of paint on this spot and really make them like a jet black color. This one's just freaking me out because I can't see, sorry guys, what I'm doing. Too far away. There we go. Okay, I just had to pick it up to move it closer. I was not getting the right angle there. So there we go. If you want your flag to go through the hand, you can even paint it past the fingers. That way it looks like he's actually holding it. Okay, after my turquoise blue, because I am going pretty opaque with these so they're drying fairly quick, I'm gonna use my ice green, and I'm just gonna add a little line there and a little line there. You can always go back with your shadows and add more shadows if you want. Just remember your shadows are a little bit more of a watercolor. It's a little bit more watery. If it's too opaque, it'll be really, really, really dark, and then that'll be too much of a contrast. You want a subtle contrast. And then under the little shirt here, we can see that little line. We can make the line under the arm to separate the sleeve. So you don't always need like absolute, this is a line, you know, like drawing a black line. You can just separate with highlights and shadows. These are all very important skills to learn so that you guys can utilize them in different ways. Okay, now I'm gonna take my white and I'm just gonna fix around the eyes, but I'm gonna be careful of the black I just did. Okay, that kind of dried down. And then we're gonna go right here. It's gonna be tricky. Okay, the less pressure you put down, the pointier your brush stays. If you're pushing down really hard, it makes all of the brush fray out. So that's why it's really important to practice keeping a pinky down if you can. If you can't, just holding your hand back so you can control the brush really well. I always think of chopsticks when I'm painting. Because if I'm over it like this, I can't really see. When I'm kind of off to the side and I lean back and I put all of my weight and let it rest on my hand, then I feel like I have more control over it. If you don't know how to use chopsticks, that will make no sense to you. I still don't really think I know how to use chopsticks the right way. I've had friends laugh at me, but I'm darn close. I am darn close to getting it right. Okay. So I'm just kind of coming back, touching up a couple spots before I move on to my little piece. Now I do have white on my brush. I'm gonna add a little bit of a dry brushing technique to the tops of the toes. A little bit, and then it is like barely on my brush now. Just a little highlight. And then the dark, dark, dark orange one more time for the beak. Just loaded up a little bit of dark orange. Go right here. I can always use a brighter pink on the tongue. Okay, I'm gonna use a bright pink on the tongue. I'm gonna go with regular pink. It's not hot pink because I do have a hot pink. It's just kind of a bubblegum pink is what I always say. That way at least my coral reds aren't all blending in. So I've loaded it up. And I can always come back with crimson red and sharpen the tongue up a little bit more. It came out pretty good, so I'm happy with that. Okay, and unlike my illustration I did not add highlights to the eyes. This one I am going to add highlights. So I'm going to come back and I'm going to add 2 dots to the eyes. I'm going to go 1, 2, and I'm going to add just a little speck in the corners. So I probably put his eyes a little too high. I think I would have rather had him a little bit lower, but that's okay. However he's meant to be, that's how he's meant to be. I'm not going to start all over again. Even though I have my Deerfoot brush ready to go, I'm going to go ahead and drop some of this down, and then I'm going to take a Deerfoot brush that's been drying, and this is where I'm going to kind of soften it. All right, if it's too much, you can always go back with your white and shape it out. And I'm just shaping the lower side. I'm letting the top side still have kind of that little fuzziness to it. All right, so next what I would do, okay, this is my little Donald. Next what I would do is take my little foam, and I'm writing cutie on it just like I did, but I'm gonna use a pencil and then I'm gonna use my permanent marker. All right, so I'm gonna start kind of shaping, and it just gets smaller and smaller as it goes. Okay, so once I have it, I take my pointy, not a dull Sharpie, a pointy Sharpie, and I'm gonna write it thin first, and then I can always go back and thicken it. And I love pennants, so it was a lot of fun to kind of make this project with that. I was feeling very, very vintage when I was making these. I'm just kind of thickening up, whoops, one side. We don't want that to look like a V. Probably gonna have to thicken it up a little more because that one got a little out of hand. Okay. And you don't necessarily have to do this. Like I said, you can write something else. You can write Donald. You can write Quack. I almost wrote Quack on it when I first made mine. I have like little kind of stitches going down. And because I made this so littles, I'm just doing dots, even if it overlaps a little bit. And then I'm gonna make a little bit of a thin line going down the pennant to divide the yellow. But again, I'd love to see how people did these that decide to paint them. I'm going to use white to add a little highlight to each of these little letters. So I'm just going to touch on right in the center. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. One more time. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And I'm going to take a little bit of my coral red and I'm going to make some stitches on this side. That's why I'm saying foam is just so fun and easy to work with. Maybe I outline it. I know I'm pushing it, aren't I? I'm pushing it, but I'm going to try it anyway. I can always redraw over it. I like that. Adds a little edge to it. I love miniatures. For those of you that don't know, my aunt was an incredible miniature dollhouse maker and absolutely phenomenal. Ended up in magazines and stuff. So anytime I work on something little, I think of her. I love miniature, but she was the professional at it, not me. I'm too sloppy. Like I said, my hands shake. And I'm going to add a little bit of pink to the little connector pieces. Yeah. I think that's cute. All right. So I might go back with like a little bit of a reddish orange to kind of get more of my shadow in there. But otherwise, I'm happy with how it came out. And I'm going to take Gorilla Glue. You guys, if you are supporting anything I do, shopping from me, getting DIY workshops, anything like that, I highly suggest getting fast drying Gorilla Glue because it is my go-to. I use it for pretty much any project I have to do something with glue. Unless I can use tacky glue, but most times it has to be quick drying so that I can move on to the next thing. I was like, I can't even tell if I'm on it. So I'm going to sit here for a second. It's going to wiggle back and forth for a second until it starts to adhere. The paint is kind of stuck to my thumb, so it's moving with my hand. Let me try this. There we go. And I'm just going to let it sit. But whenever it does that, if it's something that's tilting as you're going, I'm going to take a piece of foam, lift it. If it requires some more glue, maybe you need some more glue, but see how I'm keeping it even so that it can dry. And there's that. And I'm going to finish this out. A little bit of blue. I hope you guys had a good time. Again, if you have not supported a DIY ornament workshop with me, you can always sign up. Just know it takes about a month to get the first goodies because by the time you sign up, you might sign up towards the end of a month and get it a little faster. But they do take a little while to ship because I have a lot of different subscribing rewards. So, you know what I'm saying? Like, you just got to be patient. It will get there. And then I put out the workshop and email everybody after. Tonight I'm making it live for all to watch. So I figure I'll just send out the link after I'm done on my YouTube video so people can rewatch. And then my those that do subscribe and get it every month. This is, by the way, the reddish orange that I chose to use. Then you can kind of watch it. But usually these are private, even though if you don't have the ornament, it doesn't really matter whether it's live or not. But I like those experiences with just them because they paid for it and it gives them time to be in the chat and ask. And today I decided not to do the chat because I do have to get going to an event tonight. So not an event I'm selling at, just an event for celebration. And yeah. There we go. So you've got your little cutie. I think it's still drying. I'll probably put some weight on it. And I do notice like a little spot where I just have to paint a little more black. But there you go. There's a little Donald ornament. It's going to look different for everybody. We are all unique. We are not robots. We are not the same. We are not AI. So enjoy the fact that it looks like yours. Okay? Don't be upset. And I already drew this, so I kind of know where to put the things. And if you're not me and you've never drawn it before, you're kind of guessing. But yeah, I hope you guys had a good time. And hopefully I'll see you for the June rewards in early